like nothing changes in your house, right? Like the furniture doesn't change. So it has this subconscious way of making you feel like you can't change, you know? On the flip side of that, novel experiences, novel scenery, novel inputs can help you generate novel thoughts.
What up, everybody? My name is Max McCoy, and I had the opportunity to interview Max Lugavere. Max is a two-time best-selling author. He wrote Genius Foods. He wrote The Genius Life. He is the host of one of the top health and wellness podcasts on the planet called the Genius Life Podcast. He is a science journalist. He is a TV personality, and he's a friend of mine. I got to produce his podcast for a few months now, and I've grown close to him and got to know a lot about him, and I was so grateful to be able to have him on my podcast, which is called Looking Up. I'm really passionate about this idea of like what gives us a true sense of direction, what gives us a true sense of clarity in life, and what allows us to kind of follow that unique path that I think we all have. I'm super interested in that in my own life, and I love to ask those type of questions. And so in this video, I kind of extracted my favorite part of my interview with Max Lugavere. It's an hour-long interview, so if you want to hear the whole thing, definitely go to my podcast, Looking Up. But for this video in particular, we talk about like Max's best career advice. He is the quintessential example of someone who is living an authentic and passionate career path, and I wanted to hear about it. He gave us some really good advice around how we can kind of do the same and find something that we're really passionate about and good at. And so this was my favorite part of the interview, Max Lugavere's best career advice for us. I hope you enjoy. Again, my name is Max McCoy. Check out my work. I'm kind of not posting to YouTube much, but this is me trying to do more of that. And yeah, I hope you like this clip with Max Lugavere.
If you would have told me back then that one day in the not too distant future, you're gonna write a book and it's actually gonna help, you know, thousands of people all around the world, I would have thought that you were like just totally pulling the chain, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's insane. There's so many questions I want to ask from that. I guess you saying that makes me want to ask, like, what advice would you give yourself at that start of your career before kind of the mom stuff came up? Like, not know, you know, it sounds like you were kind of just going with this air of, I'm on TV, it's pretty sick. What might you have told yourself?
I was
that early career existential crisis. I kind of lived there, you know. I've been in my career for a while now, but yeah, there's so much uncertainty all the time, and I think a lot of the people in my little ecosystem are in that early stage of their career. What advice would you have given yourself then? Well,
I would. So I love this question. I had a lot of existential angst. There were moments where I was probably the most depressed I'd ever been. But in the back of my head, I had the fortitude to be able to tell myself in those moments to trust my talent, you know, trust whatever it is that led to this stroke of lightning, you know, that ended up with me getting a freaking TV show. That I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know what my next job looked like. I didn't know whether I was going to be, you know, an author or an editor or a producer, or if I was going to go back to school and maybe get that medical degree. I had no idea. But what I knew was that there was a compass in me that in my best moments, despite any, you know, fear or anxiety about following it, I took risks and I followed it. And that in doing so, it led to great things. And you know, when you have a compass, you don't know where the compass is leading you. All you have is that it keeps you in the present, right? Because all you have is the freaking direction signal, right? And that's all you have to go on. But you have to follow that compass, whatever it tells you. And the other thing that I would tell myself, which I'm very, you know, glad that I was able to do, and you know, there's a bit of privilege I think that comes with my circumstances, because I was born and raised and got to live in New York City, which is a big city. There's a lot of opportunity there, but you have to remain in following your compass. You have to kind of make sure that the environment around you is fertile, so that when you have, so that it, you know, because your ideas are not, you don't come up with ideas in isolation, right? Your ideas emerge from, you know, this sort of dance that you and your experience and your skills and your talents and your curiosities and your passions basically interact, how all of those aspects of you interact with the environment. So you have to make sure that you are sort of engineering your environment so that it can bring about your best self and your best ideas and your best insights. And for me, you know, what I think really kind of helps is to for one, say yes to things, you know, always remain open, and to kind of curate your environment to allow for openness and to allow for opportunities to present themselves to you. And so for me, you know, I was living in New York City, which is a city where there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of sort of molecular, you know, like stuff going on. Like, it's just there's a lot of chaos. But in that chaos, you kind of, you know, following your compass amid that chaos just allows for a lot of ideas to emerge. And same with LA, you know. Maybe this is sort of my way of convincing you not to move out of LA.
What is a sign you've kind of cultivated your foundation in the right way so that ideas can come through? Like, what are some signs that you've actually done that?
Well,
to make space
some
to be able
signs.
To fall. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What are some indicators that you would recommend?
Well, I think you start to have like a lot of like different ideas, and not every idea is a good idea, but you just tend to have more ideas. Like if I'm sitting home all day, moping and like surfing, well, the internet's not really a good example because you can generate lots of ideas looking around on the internet. But I think like you tend to have a lot of ideas. Not all of them are good. Some of them, you know, some of them will, you know, you'll fail if you pursue some of them.
Yeah.
But then others I think are generally really good. Like you're bound to land on something that works and takes off. You know, the more ideas you have, it's like literally a numbers game. It's like throwing things. It's like throwing stuff up against a wall to see what sticks. Mm. I know that when I'm just sitting around my house, I don't have novel thoughts as much as when I'm outside talking to people, having conversations. Mm.
Novel thoughts. That's a really good indication. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know what it is like. There's something about being home. There's an author that I really love. His name is Alain de Botton, and I don't know what book he talks about this in. I think it might. Actually, I do. I think his book is. It's The Art of Travel. It's a really great book, and in the context of it, he talks about how travel is so important for the human psyche and the creative spirit, because when you're stagnant and you're just sitting around your house, like nothing changes in your house, right? Like the furniture doesn't change. So it has this subconscious way of making you feel like you can't change, you know? On the flip side of that, novel experiences, novel scenery, novel inputs can help you generate novel thoughts, right? Novel environments can help you generate novel thoughts.
It's crazy because I said like what kind of started my career was an existential post-career or post-college, what am I doing with my career, like situation. I didn't know what I was going to do, completely felt lost and without direction. I felt like school was telling me, just keep doing this, keep doing this, keep doing this. And then by the end of it, you'll have your shit together. And so I kind of was like, okay, like this doesn't feel right, but I think I'll just keep going and eventually it'll make sense. And it never did. And that's why I'm really like into this kind of information in terms of finding direction, because of that just complete feeling like lost and there was no options for me. And I just had the chills as you said that, because it was traveling that all changed. I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And after college, I just went and traveled. And for 3 months, just had no plan, no idea what I was doing. And the novelty, I came back like a completely different person. Like
charged.
Just charged. And that, what's so cool about you, man, it's like you have this scientific brain, and I'm fascinated by how you kind of do what you do. But then what also fascinated me is the paradox of that, in that you're talking about finding direction through following your own compass. That's something that in this early part of my journey is so important to me. And traveling was the first thing that was like, oh, I can feel this like compass within me kind of pointing me different ways. And this novelty is making me think in new ways, and all this external stimuli that's different. Now I kind of have a better relationship with myself because everything's different except myself. if that makes sense. So, I mean, where else in your life has that internal guidance, that following that compass kind of been like I needed that?
Oh man. Dude, well, so many things. I think also when I was your age, so I don't know if yeah, you do know this. I used to, I play music.
Yeah.
But there was a time when I really was more gung-ho, I guess, about pursuing it. And this was primarily in my mid-20s. I really loved to play music, and I was kind of moonlighting while I had that job on TV. You know, in the evenings I was practicing guitar and practicing singing and writing songs, and ultimately I started to like play out in Los Angeles. And I'm super grateful that I got to do that. It was an amazing period for me. I still look back and I'm like, I can't believe I had the cojones to do that, you know, to like get up on stage and play out in LA, where there's like so many incredibly talented people, right, that are struggling to make it in music, right? And I was like, listen to me. But at a certain point I realized that like I had all these other passions, and to make it in music, you know, you can't, and to make it really in any sort of artistic field where it's just so competitive and there's so much talent, you really can't have a plan B. The minute you have a plan B is the minute somebody else is going to surpass you. And I think that's true for all of my successful musician friends. You know, that's the only thing that they've ever wanted to do. They've never wavered from that. At some point I read a fortune cookie. I know it sounds silly, but I read a fortune cookie, and it had this amazing saying, this amazing quote from, I believe it was like Confucius or something. I don't know. Who knows if Confucius actually said this, but the quote was, "A person who chases two rabbits catches neither." And at that point, I was chasing a few different rabbits. I was like chasing music as a potential career. I was doing my TV hosting thing. And sort of like around that same time is also when there was definitely a bit of overlap when I was experiencing this with my mom, and I was like, well, I don't want to do any of this other stuff. Now I just want to talk about health. And so there were like all these different rabbits sort of in my field of vision, and I was at a certain point trying to chase all of them. I was like, well, how do I hold on to this dream, you know, job scenario where I get to be on TV and I get to talk about what I want and I get to get paid for it. But at the same time, I want to be a singer-songwriter. Like, I just love being on stage, and I want to, you know, like record music, and there's that. But then, you know, and that's like my career stuff. But then, like, you know, I'm going through this with my mom. Like, it really, you know, it's more substantial, and it's ultimately, you know, what I'm finding myself starting to like think about all the time, you know, which is like health, and like, how do I be successful in all of these three things? And what I realized is that you can't, you know, you can do anything you want. You just can't do everything, you know, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And so I had to pick the rabbit that I wanted to chase. And I knew that health and science communication was going to be that rabbit, and that if I focused on that rabbit, I would catch it, rather than trying to catch all three rabbits. And so that's sort of a roundabout way of saying you really have to kind of focus on the one thing that you want to do. And if you don't yet know what that is, that's totally okay. The best thing that you could do if you haven't yet picked the one thing is to make sure that you have rabbits, you know? So like, you can't chase rabbits if you have no rabbits. You need to have the rabbits, I guess, is what I would say. And some people, that's I guess an issue for some people. They don't have the rabbits. Like, they don't know exactly what they're passionate about. I've never really had that problem because I've been lucky in that I'm a passionate person. So, you know, music, TV hosting, I just like loved all those different things. So I had a sort of pack of rabbits. And then for me, the challenge was really kind of like being able to bid adieu to the rabbits that I didn't want to chase necessarily, and to focus on the one rabbit that I did want to chase.
I so resonate with that. I've heard you talk about that. I forgot where, but it resonated so much that I wrote it down in my journal. And that's a thought that has come back to me a lot, is he who chases two rabbits catches neither. I've fallen into the bucket that I have a lot of rabbits.
What are your rabbits?
I like the podcasting. I like the video creation. I like my writing. I have all these other ideas. But I'm trusting that I'm kind of like just still investing more time into each rabbit and seeing which one is the one that both kind of lights me up, like the science was doing for you, and then which one do I actually think I can catch. So still in that like taking data phase.
Well, I mean, you described rabbits. I mean, those are certainly rabbits, but they're also skills that can be kind of funneled into the one thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like now that I do, here's what's so amazing about me deciding to chase that one rabbit is that now all of those skills that I had amassed over my life really are now useful day to day in everything that I do, like the video, like hosting, being on camera. Totally. You know, like I do that now, you know, regularly. I've created my own TV show with your help, of course. Writing, you know, I get to write professionally. I get to sort of have a little bit of that Hollywood kind of energy that I certainly enjoyed feeding off of for all the years that I had my own TV show, because you know, I've kind of been able to become a public figure. But to me, it's all been a very natural. It's literally just like all of my skills have kind of like rolled into what it is that I'm currently doing, because of course they have. You know, it's like you're ultimately going to get to do all the things that you want to do if you kind of just focus on that one thing, you know, because as that one thing grows, then you're able to bring into the fold all of the skills that you're able to offer.
It's like trusting the unfoldment that all these kind of sub skills will become one thing. And I mean, it's so easy to want to reverse engineer this perfect career. Yeah. You know, like, all right, these are all my skills. Let me like think of what, and I'm sure from your perspective, that's almost not doable. Like you wouldn't have been able to say like, how can I take my writing interest and my skill set of being on camera and educating, my researching, how can I make this like a perfect career? Like, I imagine that would have been difficult to do.
Totally. Like, it makes perfect sense in hindsight, but it would have made no sense like looking forward. You know, you can't ever predict it, but when you're there and you look back, you're like, of course that's how it worked out.
What do you say to maybe a past Max, and that could be for either of us, that had trouble kind of like surrendering to the unfoldment of what was becoming in his career? I ask you these career specific questions because I do so admire how authentic your career is, and it is a rare thing, and I think it's something that we're all striving for, especially now. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just funny because like there were definitely moments where I was like, you know, super depressed, didn't know where the fuck I was going to go. You know, I literally was like, I would lose sleep wondering whether or not I was wasting my time by not enrolling in a, you know, college program to prepare me to take the MCATs, you know, to go to med school. Like I was, I didn't know. And I was like,
wow,
I would think, I would wonder whether or not I was like a failure. Just all kinds of crazy negative self-talk.
And that's so common now with social media. Everybody can look at that person who's 10 years ahead of them, and amidst trying to figure it out, it's so easy to fall into that. Yeah.
And it's also, you never actually feel like you arrive. Like, I definitely don't feel that way. Like, I just, you know, I feel like I'm still like at the beginning of my journey, like whatever, you know. Yeah. Like I look at, you know, other big podcasts and I'm like, why isn't, you know, how do I, like, what do I need to do to get my podcast that, you know, there? Wow. So you never feel like you arrive, but at least I feel like I have at this point, like I have a lane, you know, and not only do I have like a lane, but I have the added bit of, you know, maybe it's illusory, but I feel like I have like a bit of safety, which is nice, which I didn't have in the past. you know, like it almost feels like guardrails. Like within my lane, I'm able to kind of experiment and take risks and try things. And sometimes, you know, even now, like I'll do things and, you know, they don't necessarily always succeed, you know, and this happens on the micro scale too. Like sometimes I'll post about something that's a little out of my wheelhouse on Instagram and I'll lose 1,000 followers, but I'm like, I'm just, you know, trying, I'm just like pushing all the buttons, right?
Yeah.
You got to push all the buttons. And so
before one finds that lane, what would you say?
Yeah. Before one finds the lane.
Because I imagine like time helps too. You know, you like I said, like data accrues over time, and I'm starting to find out like, okay, who am I, and what do I like, and what am I good at, and these skills need time to develop.
Yeah.
But in that, there's a lot of uncertainty. You said you had a lot of nights staying up, questioning if you're doing the right thing. This fear of, am I doing the right thing? I think is so prominent with me and so many people I talk to. Like, what would you say to yourself in those stages?
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say take it easy on yourself. You know, don't worry so much. Things are going to work out.
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily going to be clear how to you, but you're going to get to a point where looking back, it's all going to have made perfect sense.
Yeah.
But really, I would say like just don't freaking worry so much. You know, I worried a lot. I was, you know, depressed. I would, you know, as I mentioned, like I was having like an existential crisis. You know, and I would say like, don't worry. You know, whatever the universe, like you have to trust the timing of the universe, and whatever it is that you're meant to do, you're going to find it, so long as you aren't sitting on your couch and playing video games all the time. And, you know, you're putting yourself out there, you're saying yes to things, you're surrounding yourself with good people, which you definitely do. And which I intuitively have always done. I've never wanted to be the smartest person in the room. You know, I've always surrounded myself with people who I could learn from and who inspire me. And actually, I made an effort to kind of like spend a little bit, not cut them out of my life, but spend a little bit less time with like my college buddies who weren't all that inspiring, who weren't really doing things in their life as big as the kinds of things that I wanted to do, you know? I mean, I have friends that are doing, you know, like they're not necessarily doing the same thing that I'm doing. You know, they don't have to be, it doesn't have to be like about financial success or about, you know, the number of followers or anything like that. But you have to have like vision, you know? I really admire people that have vision, and whether or not you have that lane or you figured out what that lane is for you, you can still have vision, you know, and your vision might be that you are meant for something, you know, that's bigger than just sitting at a desk from 9 to 5 working for somebody else.
Yeah.
Like that's enough, I think, because then what you're going to do is you're going to surround yourself with people who also feel that way about themselves and who are out there like feeling out the waters and pushing the boundaries of their own capabilities. And that's going to inspire you to do the same in your life.
Yeah, that enthusiasm is infectious. I've found that.